I want to tell you stories. And the reason I say that is because probably the best storyteller of all time was this guy you've probably heard of named Jesus. And Jesus told these stories. So this morning, I want to tell you a story. So notice in your bulletin, there's no sermon note sheet. Nothing. I don't want you to take notes. I want you to listen. In fact, I'm probably never going to say this. I want you to close your Bibles. Don't open your Bibles. I know this is like flooring people. That's okay. I want you to relax and hear a story. Because I just want to tell you a story this morning. It was my third year in seminary. An MDiv, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is a 3-year, 90-hour degree, and I was in the middle of year 3 of a 5-year program for me personally. And if you enjoy something, might as well drag it out, right? But we were in Northeast Tennessee. I was the associate minister, although they would never use the term associate. I was the other guy. I was the guy who did youth and Christian education, which meant anything beyond preaching I had to do. In fact, Paul reminded me of this about this church. It was really kind of fun because a long time ago, people read that passage from Corinthians, and they said, okay, you're not supposed to eat in church. So churches would build fellowship halls to have church dinners, but they weren't actually connected to the main building. Do you remember that? This church literally had a walkway like this. You had to turn this way between the two buildings. Well, it doesn't matter. They wouldn't see it anyway. So anyway, it was December. I had just finished my last final. It was a final in the history of Christian doctrine, which is a class that looks at the formation of Christian doctrine through the centuries. So from the first century up through modern times and how church doctrine has grown and matured. And it was a class, let me tell you. I was taught by my major professor, Dr. Fred Norris, who, the guy was brilliant. It's one of those that you sit learning, hoping at least a little bit rubs off. Not much did. But we had this final, and at the end of this final, it was 2 hours of essay writing. I was brain dead. But after the final, Connie was working. At those days, she was working second shift for this company. So she was working 3 to 11. So I was going to school from about 8 till mid-afternoon, and she'd work from 3 to 11. So we didn't see a whole lot of each other in those days. But we were going, and she was working second shift, got her to work, and then I went into the church to do all the things that needed to be done that I hadn't been doing because I'd been studying for finals that week. So I went in, and I was working, and there was something else about the church at this time which was kind of interesting. The senior minister had left. So they decided that it would be wise for me to do not just everything beyond preaching, but to add preaching and go to school full time as well. So I had been kind of working on a sermon, and I was finalizing it. So I got into the office about 3:30, and I just started working and trying to. I don't know how many of you have ever written a sermon. I know some of you have, but when you're brain dead, everything is like slow. So I'm doing all this, and I'm going on. And finally, I think it was 7:30-ish. I was starting to get hungry. It was pitch black outside because it's December in Tennessee in the mountains. And so I, gathered my stuff together. I figured I could go home, get something to eat, finish at home. And so I've got everything, and I grabbed my coat and put a hat on and locked the office up. And I'm just about to go outside the door, the back door of the church, and kind of slide down the hill to the parking lot because it was icy and snowy, and it was November or December in northeast Tennessee in the mountains. So, of course, there was snow. So as I'm about to open the door, the phone rings. Now, I was tired. I was brain dead. No one's supposed to be in the church Friday nights at 7:30. And it was before cell phones, so I could easily have just gone on out the door. But something said, go answer the phone. So, put my stuff down, went in, unlocked the office, sat down to answer the phone. And it was one of those phone calls where usually if somebody's calling a church, they let the phone ring like 3 or 4 times and they give up. It just kept ringing. So I sat down, picked it up, and there was this lady on the phone. And this lady said, thank God you're there. My family really needs some help. And she starts telling me this story about they haven't had any food for 3 or 4 days. It's her son, and her blind father. He had been through problems with diabetes. And trust me, I got the whole story. He had gone blind because his diabetes was out of control, and you know how all that works. And she goes, is there any way the church could give us some food? And I started thinking, lady, I'm tired. I am really, at this point, I was beyond brain dead. And because I was beyond brain dead, I just immediately said, sure, where do you live? Now, let me tell you, has anybody ever been to East Tennessee? It is an amazing place because addresses mean nothing. Okay? In fact, I'm not sure GPS would actually work in this area. But she gave me directions to her house. She said, we live in Tin Can Holler. Okay, now, we would call it Hollow, but they call it Holler. So, Tin Can Holler. And she goes, and she starts giving me directions. And remember, they don't use street names. Go up by the old school, and you turn left on the county road. And you take that, go down under the highway, and you keep going. There's, remember where that really big tree used to be that got knocked down in the storm? When you get to that, I want you to veer left. And she starts telling me these directions. And then back where the old gas station was, I think there's something that's still there, turn right. And go down. And she goes, down at the end of this road, there's a trailer park. We live in the last trailer on the left. So I said, okay, I'll bring you food, no problem. So I go to the church, had a little pantry, kind of like what we do. And so I gathered some stuff up, and 2 bags of food. I figured that's good, right? And it wasn't like the plastic bag. This is the back in the day where they had brown paper bags, so it was probably more food. So I'm carrying this stuff, and then I realized, they probably need milk or something like ground beef, something. So there's a little corner store that the church had an account in. And it's like, so we could go get people milk or whatever. So I went and walked in. The guy looked at me, and he goes, put this on the church account. And I said, yeah. So I went and got it, and the only time I went in there was to get stuff on the church account, okay? And because the prices were just ridiculous. So I start, and I go up by the school, make the turn, go down under, go all the way. And I'd been through Tin Can Holler before, okay? But let me tell you something about Tin Can Holler. They didn't plow the streets because they were dirt. We get up there, it's a dirt road. So I get up, at this point, we had a 1983 Chevy Chevette 5-speed. Okay? We used to call it the Vet just for fun. And so I'm slipping and sliding through, up there, and I'm just, it's one of those, like we're talking about, you're not praying to baby Jesus that you don't, crash. It's the Holy Trinity you need. So I get up there, and I find, it takes me 45 minutes to get there. So I pull into the trailer park, and sure enough, down last trailer on the left is a trailer that kind of looks something like that. The only difference between that trailer And that picture in the trailer that I went to, it was, they had 4 cars out front, and none of them were really drivable. In fact, the one that was probably the most drivable had 2 flats, okay? And the other cars were literally up on cinder blocks, hoods up and ice, and they hadn't driven these things in who knows how long. So I go up and I see the steps up, and I go to get the stuff, and I had in the back something I had forgotten to do, like, I went blank earlier today. Well, I went blank, and there was a box of Bibles in the back. In fact, I got one. It was a New Testament, and this is a old Bible. It's like from the 90s. Old, yeah. But this is the church, and this is the fellowship hall that wasn't connected to anything else. But we bought these, and we would give them away to first-time visitors, which I thought was a pretty cool thing. And it's just the New Testament. So I had the box of them in there, so I thought, a Bible. I should give them a Bible. We're a church. And then I'm thinking, I'm thinking growing the church. It has the name and address and where to find the church. So I thought, hey, maybe they'll come to church. You never know. So I opened the box, ripped the box open, and took one of these Bibles and put it on top of one of the bags. So I go in, and it's kind of scary going into a kind of a place like this the first time because you don't know what to expect. So I go up to the steps, and I hear a dog barking. Not like an ankle biter dog, but a dog that had a bark. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to get chewed alive. But I'm helping people. I'm thinking, all the time, it's like, I could be asleep. I could have something to eat myself. All these kinds of things. So I go up, and I notice, luckily I was smart enough to look down before going up the steps, because the second step had a bad crack in it. And I'm pretty sure if I had stepped on the step, I probably would have killed myself. So I skipped that step and go up, and just as I'm about to knock on the door, this guy opens the door. Now, I've only met one person larger than this guy, and that's Dwayne. This guy was a mountain of a man, okay? Now, everything that Dwayne is tall, this guy's about 6'5", but I'm not sure how he got in and out of the door, okay? As he's standing at the door, there's part of him that I can't see on each side. Okay? He is barefoot, wearing, I guess they call it wife beater t-shirts. The tank top white. Well, at one point it was white. I'm not sure what color it was. It was dark, okay? So, and he's wearing overalls, like the bib overalls, the farmer's, except one of the little hooky thingies is gone. So it's like drooped down, and I'm looking going, and be honest, I'll be honest, I look at the guy and I think, buddy, you have not missed a meal. Okay? I know what I'm talking about, okay? And I'm looking at this guy going, oh. And the guy looks at me, and I'm thinking, okay, there's a dog, there's this mountain of a guy. I'm going to die, and Connie is never going to know where my body is, okay? We'd only been married a couple of years. I still really like her, but I really liked her then. And, she liked me a lot more because I was, not this. And I didn't have the gray. And I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, oh, Jesus, please, let this be quick. And the guy looked at me and goes, you the preacher? It's like, yes, I've brought you some food. And the guy looks at me and goes, bring it on in. And I'm thinking Texas Chainsaw Massacre and all these things in my head. So I go in, and I would like to be able to describe the inside of the trailer. But look at the picture of the outside of the trailer, and then multiply it. Anybody take higher level math? Suzanne is a higher level math, was a higher level. Okay, when they put like the numbers, not the decimals, but the exponents, and it says n. like infinity. I don't know why they don't put an I. They put the N like ad nauseum. Okay, and that to the nth degree. Okay, it was the kitchen cabinets, the counter. I don't even think cockroaches would live there. It was, oh yeah. I mean, and I've got food, and I'm thinking, and the table there was something on the table that I think that had been there since 72, and this was 86. No, we were married in 88, so it had to be 90. It'd been there a while. And I said, what would you like me to do with this? And the mountain said to me, just set it there. And I take it, and I'm thinking, this counter's not going to hold it. So I look at the table, and I think, well, the counter's going to hold it better than the table. I mean, so I set it down, and I hear the voice from this back room, and it's this woman. And you know that smoker cough sound, voice of a lady? I hear this, come on back here, I want to meet you. So I'm thinking, oh, okay. So I go into the room, family room, living area of this trailer, and the son says, be careful there. And I look, and I see, like, underneath the trailer, the ground, and so I sit up over the hole and go in, and there's this lady who, you know, sometimes the voice and the body don't match. This isn't the case. She was the voice. And then over by the fire kind of place thing, they had a fake fireplace, like a heater thing, and they actually had it was just mantle over it, was this guy who looked like he was 120 years old, real frail, skinny guy. He looked like he hadn't eaten in 3 weeks, okay? There was nothing to him, and you could tell he couldn't see anything. His eyeballs were all glazed over. It was just, oh. And I introduced myself, and I'm talking to him and a little bit, and all of a sudden, the mountain comes to me, or comes into the room, and he's got the Bible in his hand. And it's like this so everybody can see it, so his mom can see it. And he looks, and he said, Mama, he brung us a Bible. Brung us, he was crying. It was awful and great, and the mother starts crying, the blind guy starts crying, and the guy, I didn't know this. They couldn't read. And the guy hands me the Bible. And he says, read to us. Read to us about Jesus. So I read, I thought, okay. I opened it up and said, okay, Jesus, Christmas. I read the Christmas story. It was December, right? And they're crying, and I'm crying reading the story. And, So I get done, and I look, and it's about 8:30, 9 o'clock. It's about 8:30. And it felt like I'd been in there for like hours, and it was really about 15 minutes. And, and I'm thinking, okay, when I leave, fumigate, all this kind of stuff. And then I hear a little pale, frail voice in the corner say, well, that was special. We want to give you something. So this blind guy gets up right by the furnace. I guess he was sitting by the furnace because he had no body fat he was trying to keep warm, because that trailer had a wind chill factor, because you could feel the wind coming through the walls of the trailer. And so he goes, we have something for you. And I'm thinking, you have nothing. I don't need anything from you. And the guy has got this cigar box. You remember cigar boxes? Those paper. He pulls off the cigar box off the mantle. I thought, oh, please don't give me anything. And the man sits down. He's got this cigar box in his lap, and it's almost like it's, the gold, frankincense, and myrrh that the wise men gave Jesus. That's how he's carrying this thing. And he opens it, and there is red, silky fabric kind of stuff, like in a jewelry box, that they had put in this. And in the middle of it is a harmonica. And I'm thinking, what in the world? And all of a sudden, this blind guy, frail, picks up the harmonica and starts to play. And it was really beautiful. And the next thing I know, raspy coffee smoker breath voice and the mountain stand over by the grandfather, and they start singing. It was beautiful. The cigarette raspy voice was gone. All of a sudden, the guy that could have a hard time putting two words together to make a sentence, even a short sentence, they're singing all these old hymns. And I am just floored. And they sing this song, and I was like, thank you. And they said, well, come join us. Now, you all know I can't carry a tune in a bucket, okay? There is a reason why when Mark and the worship team will come up in a few minutes and start singing, I turn my mic off. There is a reason behind it. You don't want to, my wife won't let me sing to the radio. Okay? I used to sing, the only thing I was ever able to sing in every morning I'd wake up Katie and start singing Good Day Sunshine from the Beatles. That's the only thing she'll even let me sing today. Okay? But now she just plays it louder. So, and I look and said, no. I said, really, I can't sing. And they said, no, come, you got to sing with. So they said, you know this one? Of course, it was East Tennessee. They all sang the same songs in every church. And so we started to sing. And for the first time in my life, someone gave me a bucket to carry a tune in. All of a sudden, I could sing. I actually was, ready, harmonizing. And I'm thinking, this is really cool. I said, the acoustics in this place are amazing. It was amazing. It was just unbelievable. Next thing I know, I looked over at my watch, just because that's why I don't wear a watch. I don't know if you know that, because I used to look at it all the time. And Connie said, stop doing that. What? She goes, you're looking at your watch. So I stopped wearing a watch because people felt like if I kept looking at my watch, I didn't want to talk to them. So I stopped wearing a watch. So I looked at my watch, and it was 10 till 11. I'm 45 minutes away from picking my wife up from work. This is before cell phones. This trailer did not have a phone. Okay? So I'm thinking, I said, hey, I got to pick my wife. I got to go. I said, don't worry, tomorrow, I know some other things you need. My wife and I will bring it to you. So I said a quick hasty goodbye. Again, Holy Trinity getting me down this road and all the way into Johnson City where she worked. And I got there, and of course, she wasn't real happy after getting up with me in the morning, getting me off to finals, and then working 8 hours, second shift. And I got there about 20 minutes late, I think. And she just looked at me like, really? You have one job to do. Pick me up on time. And we had one car, so that's the way it worked. And so we got in the car, and all the way home, I'm telling her about this amazing experience. I said, and I could sing, and she goes, yeah, right. You are so tired. You haven't slept all week. So we tell her, and I don't sleep at all that night. As tired as I don't sleep. So I get up in the morning, and I wake up, come on, Connie, come on, we have good, I know they need this and this, and I'm thinking a piece of plywood or something to put over the hole on the floor, and so I was making less than $100 a week, maybe $100 a week. 105 at that point, which was good money. They told me right after the war, World War II. I went and went and got some stuff out of the furnace room of the church, and like old plywood pieces and stuff, and we go out there, and I go up to the old school, turn left, go into the highway, go to the tree used to be, gas station, go all this stuff, and I pull into the trailer park, and last trailer on the left, and I'm telling her all of this, and I'm giving her directions. She's going, yeah, and she hadn't been there, you know what I mean? So it's hard to tell someone what it's like when they haven't been there. And I said, now the trailer's really nasty. Okay, and we get there, and I pull into the trailer park and go down, last trailer on the left, and it's a field. So I'm thinking, okay, it was dark. I made a wrong turn somewhere. It was dark the night, so I went back. We backtraced all the way back to the school, went all the way in. Same directions, same path, and she's looking at me like, we've done this before. Go into the trailer park, and last trailer it's a field. I did that 3 times. It was there. There was no trailer, there was no old cars, there were no broken steps. There was no dog barking. So after the 4th time, I guess, we're pulling out, and the guy that lived in the trailer, night before had been the second trailer to the end, was out scraping ice on his car. And he looks at me and by the way, they could tell I was from Houston. They called me City Boy. Go figure. And they looked at me, and the guy looked at me like I was an idiot, which I'm used to. And he looked at me and goes, son, are you looking for something? And I said, yeah. I said, I was here last night, and the trailer's gone. And he looked at me. He goes, son, you been drinking this early? No, I'm a preacher, and I brought this family food. He said, you didn't bring it here. I said, yes, I did. I gave him he goes, yeah, that's how to get here. I said, there's the last trailer on the left. It was an old beige, beat-up piece of junk trailer, 4 cars out front, all on block except one that had 2 flats, stairs broken. They had a big dog. I said it was a lady, her son, who was actually an adult, and the grandfather who was blind. The guy just looked at me. Never found him. That was weird. Matt? Hebrews 13:2 says, remember to welcome strangers, because some have done this, have welcomed angels without knowing it. Guess what? I made that story up. Never happened. Still gets me, though, the emotion. Wow. Imagine if it did, though. Wouldn't that be cool? Me singing with a tune? Wow. That's it. At that point, people knew. When you give, when you hand someone an envelope that says $dollars for Jesus, you might have entertained an angel without even knowing it. Now, someone once said to me, well, how do you know that's true? Well, number one, it's in Hebrews 13:2. And if God puts this in there, chances are it's happened, right? So it can happen, and probably has happened. It didn't happen to me that way. But when you hand that envelope, some of us may have entertained an angel. We don't know. But this I know for certain. When you hand someone that envelope, when you meet someone who has a need, you meet their need, you have been a blessing. Whether or not they're an angel, you have been a blessing to them. And you have lived out your faith. Would you pray with me? Father, we come to you this morning asking for opportunities to maybe not entertain an angel, but to meet the needs of people, to show your love and your grace, even if we're tired and worn out. Father, you know what you're doing. So, Father, put people in our path that we can serve so that they can see the love of God in us. And we pray this in your Son's name.